welcome back. Wow, WJ coming in hot. Says, do I do any Harn materials? Third-party publishing. No, I have some stuff I'm trying to finish up for kind of yeast and specific generic OSR. I don't have anything for Harn. I don't even know what the licensing would be for Harn. I don't know. I have no idea what if it's even, is it possible, what the deal is. I don't know. And from a I don't know, content creator standpoint, it's one of those difficult choices you have to make if you're going to develop for something like Harn. What's your audience? I don't know. I'm just moving my headphones out of the way here. I don't know how large, big, grand the audience for Harn stuff is. Now, that being said, I think you could probably do a lot if you wanted to do something and target Harn. You could kind of target it probably without really targeting it. Or in other words, if you just position your stuff as more or less kind of crunchy, grounded, medieval fantasy type stuff, I imagine you could make things that are, I don't know, mechanically agnostic that folks could bring into Harn easily enough. If I do get around to doing, was it Harn Master, the actual mechanics element of this, then we can probably look at that more. But I don't even know if there is anybody. I don't know if there is any third party create. It might just be that it's Columbia Games or maybe Gold Games because of that. As somebody mentioned yesterday, there was a split between the author and Columbia Games, who publishes HarnWorld, and so there's a version of Harn Master that is published separately under a different publisher. Something in there, I'm not sure. And apparently that author has passed, so I don't even know what the status is. If it's going to revert back to Columbia, or who knows how that works. It doesn't seem like there's any third-party stuff going on, but I haven't looked. Oh boy, Rifts Palladium. I mean, I do want to. So WJ's asking about doing Rifts Palladium Fantasy at some point. I will check them out. I do have some history with Rifts, but really just me looking at the art and sort of imagining things about the stuff I would see pictures of and read, and then using it in a completely different way than kind of what it was designed for. It's another one of those systems. I used to see a lot of Rifts when I was in Houston over hanging out at Nan's or checking out what's going on at Nan's. I would see lots of Rifts materials. I bought some Rifts materials, but never actually saw anybody or communicated to anyone who actually played Rifts back in the day. Obviously, people did. It would be something I'd be interested in going into and looking back at it. I know about, he said they got a bump from Savage Rifts. Maybe I'll look at that version. I don't know. I'll probably do both at some point. You guys ask, as with all things, if folks want to see it, let me know. There's a sentiment out there that, hey, I want some Rifts stuffs. I'm happy to, especially when if it's stuff that not everybody's looking at, just because I feel like, I'm filling a gap kind of thing. That'd be great. Hey, Diggs, welcome. All right, so we're continuing where we left off with Harn about in their campaign. So we're getting into some of the campaign tools. I'm not sure, we'll see. So here we have stuff about birth generation. Birth attributes depend on environment. Those that follow are geared to Harn. Additional details concerning a character's birth, such as social class, occupation, family, etc., are heavily dependent on the rules being used. Hey, Terrence. Terrence says a crappy chest hold has, chest cold. Well, sorry you're not feeling well, Terrence. Get better soon, but glad you're here. All right, so species, they say they recommend that players have human characters, but this is a matter of taste. You can roll a D100 if you desired, and rolling this D100, 89% chance of being human, and then you have 1% chance of dwarf or elf. And then you can roll up a one of the orc types, which is super interesting. I feel like given how they set up these orcs, hive mind and all that, I'm curious how you would run a player character of these orcs, because I don't know that you would, as the player, maybe you'd find it interesting if you were tuned into the hive mind, but that also might, depending on how it's used, you could enforce some kind of like, the GM saying things like, well, the hive mind tells you to do this. Or alternatively, does the hive mind know everything you're doing? Which it could be interesting, but might, depending on the adventure, the opponent, and all that, might cause some hiccups. But it's interesting that they even though these orcs are very have some very specific kind of things, that they're not presented merely as monsters. Like, no, you can play as one of these, though, and your chances are, actually, if you're rolling on this chart, your chances are better that you're going to roll up an orc than a dwarf or an elf. And this is what is this? Blood orange tangerine spindrift for the working man. Hey, Krister. No, Sorian asked about the 5 orc types. Yeah, they're interesting. As Ian pointed out yesterday, it's kind of a little, you can read some kind of strong sort of colonialist vibes in that. So it is interesting. I kind of wish they would redo it a bit. But yeah, I mean, their orc thing is kind of neat. It has this very sort of an insectoid vibe, even though they look kind of like your ordinary kind of orc. But there's a hive mind, and they spawn out of these weird eggs. It very much feels like they took a lot from ants, and the way ant hives, ant mounds, and maybe bees and those kinds of creatures. I know there's a name for it. The kind of ones that have kind of societal creatures work, insects work, which is pretty neat. It's got some elements that probably don't stand up that great nowadays, but it does have some neat stuff. And it would be interesting to play a game where you're all those types. I'm not sure if anybody has, but it would be interesting. So okay, so same basic. Oh, except for if you're Kuzdul, I was gonna say it's equal chances, boy or girl, but changes a little bit depending on the on the creature. And of course, if you end up as an orc, since the queen is super special, you got to roll a double odd for that. Then we get your birth dates, get your months of the year, and then your birthplace. A character's birthplace should be identified at least to the nearest major settlement. And then you can generate a birthplace. And looks like we've got whether you're a barbarian, which is kind of their sort of, I don't know, they call it, different places they call it different things. Or they barbarian, but also sort of tribal peoples. And then you have these different, essentially different kingdoms, states, if you will. Hey, Krister. My glasses fall off. So that was it for birth. Was that really it for birth? Did I miss a page? Nope, that's it. So there you go. Interestingly enough, at least, and maybe HarnMaster would give you more, but they're not suggesting here any kind of different capabilities for different things. But probably that would come in HarnMaster, I guess, because this book is pretty much just setting material. So they're not going to give you like the if there are any prerequisites or penalties or anything like that here. All right, watch routines. We recommend the following sequence for moving characters on the regional map. So this is kind of your hex crawly type stuff. The 24-hour day is divided into 6 watches, each lasting 4 hours. First watch begins at midnight and ends at 4 a.m. and so on. Well, there you go. So the terrains they got here are, so they break them down. This might be interesting, actually. I didn't even think about this. I might have to spend a little bit extra time here. So they're breaking things down into flat, rough, and mountainous type terrain. And let's see, they break up. So you have essentially 3 different sorts of roads, or I don't know, paths: paved roads, unpaved roads, trails. Then you have cropland or pasture, mixed woodland, heathland, mixed forest, needle leaf forest, and swamps. And they have movement rates for foot, horse, cart, and wagon. I kind of feel like you could just have one, and then just these could be modifiers, but whatever. It's all good. And then in rough hilly land, you also have road, the 2 types of roads and trails also. So, okay, so each one of these mixes, this is interesting because what I'm working on does something kind of similar, in which we are kind of taking, I'm not using hill as a type of terrain by itself. It's always hill plus something, and they're doing kind of the same thing. So in a sense, you have, your mixed woodlands, and then you have kind of hilly mixed woodlands. So that's kind of cool. I hadn't even noticed that. Yes, and we get a whole page long chart of moon phases too. So then we have hill and then in mountainous too. So that's cool. And then you just have some weather. What does it says? Weather reductions. Oh, I see. In movement. So the main part of this chart is just about the movement. And then it shows at the bottom how weather affects your movement. So if it's raining, it's 10 to 25%. If it's mud, it's 50%. Blizzard, these must be negatives. Reduced by, right? So rain reduces it by up to 25%, 10 to 25%. Mud reduces it by 50%. Blizzard by 75 to 100%. 100% meaning you're just not moving at all. Snow hard pack reduces by 20%. Snow over the ankles reduces by 25 to 50%. And snow over the knees, 75%, again, up to 100%. And then these look like positive values, but remember, where they're saying basically reduce by this percentage. So reducing by 100% means nothing at all. You're at a standstill. Okay, so we have these watches, 6 watches, pretty classic, pretty normal, 4-hour watches. At the beginning of each watch, we're going to generate some weather. We're going to see a weather table later on, which will be great. This is reported to the players who record it in their journal or log. That'll be interesting. Record this in your logs. Captain's log, star date, blah, blah, blah. It's raining. Then we get encounter generation. The type of encounters possible depend on the terrain being crossed. The GM determines if the players will have any encounters during the watch. If encounters are scheduled, the GM rolls a d8 for each to determine in which half hour of the watch they will occur, and 1d30 if the exact minute is required. Wow. The GM then tells the players of encounters only when they actually occur. So basically, you roll up to say, hey, are you rolling up an encounter, or is there an encounter happening? And then you can roll to determine which half hour. So can you be very specific? And then if you want, you can roll a d30 to see which minute within that half hour if you want. So that's pretty crunchy for you if you need it. And then movement. The GM asks the players in which direction they wish to travel, and then you use the rates table. You estimate how far the party can travel, either until the next encounter or the end of the watch, whichever comes first. You should move the party on his map, describing as necessary the terrain crossed. Once all business arising from record keeping, player mapping, and encounters has been dealt with, you repeat for the next watch. So that's a pretty simple thing. And so the interesting thing about this, right, is we're kind of towing the line here. There's some hints at mechanics, but we're not actually getting mechanics. So we don't know in terms of if you're using Harn Master along with Harn World, well, how are we determining how many encounters there are going to be? We don't know how many encounters per watch, or if we're rolling, how that's supposed to be working. We're given some kind of hints. Right, we're given some hints, but this is cool because if you got HarnWorld, you don't care about Harn Master at all, you can take this stuff and use it or adapt it slightly to using BX or whatever your wandering creature checks are, or whatever system. And then these movement rates are good. I don't know what the numbers mean though. I don't think we're told. Let's see. Oh, I think it's in. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna find out. No, Sorian says it looks very adaptable. It does. I mean, that's kind of the nice thing. I remember thinking that when we started seeing some of these modules that were set up, and I forget the term, that there was a term they used for these modules, and it was like, if you're using this modular approach, everything you use, you can't reference stuff outside it. If that makes sense. So you couldn't, if you were going to talk about health. Oh, I have a little health system. If you're using this modular approach, you couldn't reference all kinds of stats. Everything had to be self-contained. And what was neat about that is it really forces you to look in terms that are all very compacted. You can't just be reaching out and say, oh, take your con and then do this or that. It's like, nope, can't do that. I got to do everything in here. And I think part of the thing here with these is because it's all setting related. And again, we're getting little mechanical hints maybe, but that's about it. That everything here, it has to be written in a way that is that doesn't rely on you having Harn Master, which means they have to put things in a way that are kind of neutral, which means that you can take these neutral stuff and then adapt it to something else. So we can look at, I believe they're saying here, so for the movement table, great, GM discretion, great, tables a guide, great, leagues per watch, which is approximately equivalent to kilometers per hour, also great. So a league is about 2.5 miles. So 5 leagues is equal to 1 hex on a regional map. So if you're using 5 mile hexes, you pretty much just divide everything by 5 to see how far they're traveling, or whatever, multiply to get what you want, which is great. So you could take this table, and in very short order, you can have a hexes per watch or fraction of hexes per watch table. So right, I don't think, no, sorry, that any of the numbers we're seeing are are sort of Harn master units. I think they're all going to be using kind of real world measurements. And I hope you didn't hear my belly rumble because it sounded quite loud to me. I haven't eaten lunch yet, which is going to be a problem later, but not now. Okay, so we got the weather modifications, great. Forced marches, you can add some fatigue, and then you can move faster, and then we have a note on sea movement. Now we get to weather generation, which is always fun. I still don't have one that I love. I mean, the Dungeon one is fine. He says hungry. Yep, I am probably a little bit hungry. Initial setup, you're going to roll d20, place a marker on the table for the appropriate season in the numbered box equal to the roll. Okay, so this is not just about your generation, but it's also where you are. So you roll a d20, look at your season, you throw it there. So if you rolled 9 and it's the spring, we end up at cold with a wind, I guess, northwest 1 to 3 miles per hour. We go right there. Oh, and this is, oh, these aren't actual moon phase. This is cloud cover. So we were incorrect. Not moon phases, cloud cover. So we have cloudy, and then there, it's totally filled. That's overcast. And then and this is clear. So we end up at 9. So wind, northwest, 1 to 3 miles an hour, cloudy. Temperature does not take into wind count. That's fine. Or wind chill, which is fine. I don't think we got a sense of the actual temperature here. We rolled. Okay, well, let's go back. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we rolled a d20. Right? We said we're on 9. Bam. For the appropriate season, because we're in the spring. So we're in the spring. We roll 9. So our first day 1, cold, winds northwest 1 to 3 miles an hour, partly cloudy. Now weather change. Weather is generated anew at the beginning of each watch. So weather could potentially move quickly, but maybe not. We'll see what we have to roll. Well, let's see. Roll a d10 and move the marker as indicated below. If the marker moves off the table, re-enter at the other end. So we roll, and it's a d10, and there's a vast majority of the chances. Looks like about 60% chance it's going to be the same. So just be cold. And then there's 1 chance it'll degrade 2. There's so 10% chance it'll degrade 2. It looks like 20% chance it'll degrade 1, and 20% chance it will increase 1. So interesting that this is kind of in the middle. It's cooled and cold and freezing. So if it just went better 1, it would actually be freezing, but the wind would cease. What's this over here? And we get fog or mist. This is a kind of a neat table. I'll have to ponder this table more, but I like it. So everything you're doing, you end up just moving around this thing, up, down, up, down, up, down. It looks like the one thing you're not going to get, I don't think, if it matters to you or not, is the kind of flash crazy storm comes up. Where, you're going to all of a sudden go, it's like, oh, hurricane. Like there's nothing here. The weather is going to be pretty smooth, which I think is good for almost all the time, right? And let's see, we do have weather. So thunderstorms, you got here. So there's a couple of chances for thunderstorms. Here's one. It looks like there's only the one for spring, which is interesting. And I don't know. I'm guessing these are kind of set. I don't know if they're looking at this was calculated using, let's say, I don't know if they looked at, I wouldn't doubt if they did, kind of British. You're just generic British Isles if you sort of averaged out the weather in the UK, and then that's where they get these from, or if you're supposed to use this anywhere in the world. I'm not sure. But that's interesting. And then we get some, you could break down the wind in speeds to get a little bit of an idea there. That's cool. I mean, yeah, I think the only thing I can think about is, do you want, Christopher says if it was British, it would be all rain. I know, or at least a lot of rain. It's funny because my sister lives in the UK now, and my mother is with her, and I hear from my mother almost every day. And yeah, she's constantly complains about the weather. It's a constant struggle for her to get in tune with the British weather. She may never get used to it. And yeah, a lot of rain. And when I was visiting there not that long ago, it was a lot of rain. So we got the quintessential English weather. But that's cool. It's going to give you a nice steady. And that's the end of, whoa, didn't need that. And that's the steady, or that's the end. That is the, so we got some steady, interesting. I kind of, you know, I'm going back to this just because I like this. I'm going to have to study this more. I think this is nice. And you could probably rework this if you prefer like a hex flower or something else. This is really nice. You're not going to get crazy stuff. So if you're looking for kind of more gonzo-ish weather, you're not getting it. Though I bet you could put in a wild card. I bet you could do something instead of doing a D10, do D20 or D12 and have 12 be just this like, yeah, flash, something crazy happens, weird weather. But I feel like 99 out of 100 times, this just gives you a nice, gives you some randomness, but not stuff that's going to get super crazy. I think I like it. All right, into the Harn decks. British weather, reroll all rain checks, keeping the most rainy result. Though I have to say, like when we were there, and I can't speak for, you know, overall in the UK, but the rain wasn't, there was a lot of it, but it wasn't heavy. It's a lot of this kind of misting, drizzling, just kind of drippy, which is annoying. But when I lived in Texas, more than say here in New York, we know that you get these rain, and the rain's coming. It looks like it's a monsoon coming down. I mean, I was in Houston, and it feels just, you know, you just want to just curl up in a ball somewhere, just get out, or just get out from driving. And people drove through it because he had to, and Houston had this other weird thing where that literally the city was part of the city planning had this scheme to flood the roads to drain the water. So you see these things that look like it's the apocalypse happening, where it looks like there's 3 feet of water on this road, on the roads, and it's all just going crazy. And then an hour later, it's all gone. Like it kind of works, but it makes things kind of dangerous if you're on the roads when it's raining like that. But the rains feel like doom, not so much the UK rains, at least not what I experienced. Hey, Squirrel Hermit. All right, so we're into the Harn decks. This we're gonna get a lot of entries. I don't know. I mean, I'll you know, I'm here and we're here, so we'll look through some stuff. This is where I think it's going to be more in terms of, I'm just kind of guessing at what we're going to find here, because I think this is where we're going to go through and see all kinds of details on specific elements of Harn, which may or may not be super interesting. I guess we'll just have to go through and we'll see. So we're going to have geographical entries. We're going to have cultural/political entries. We're going to have economic and guild entries. We're going to have religious entries. And then there's some notes on pronunciation. So here on this, a note on this edition, I'll read, because this is the 40th anniversary edition. And I as I said yesterday, or earlier stream, if we're not chronological, I don't have offhand some kind of list of what's changed between the latest edition that prior to this and this one. So any kind of notes I think are important for us. So on this edition of Harndex is a compilation of entries from all previous editions published between 1983 and 2014. It also contains material from the Harnic Dictionary that was published as part of Harn Player in 1994. Additional text, illustrations, and maps in this edition have been taken from Harn material published by Columbia Games between 1983 and 2023. All right, so assuming all this is true, this has a lot more stuff in it than maybe other versions of the Harndex, which is cool. And let's see, what kind of stuff do we want to read? So here we have some stuff about just heraldry in general. We have the crests, helm, the Dexter supporter, the Sinister supporter. Sinister used to mean kind of left. Sort of interesting about that. The charge, the arms, scroll, and the mount. That's kind of cool. So if you need to break down some heraldry terms, they got you covered. What kind of stuff is interesting? So just to see how they're organizing things, it looks like, I guess, locations. Hold on a minute. Let's backtrack one bit here. So we have a map here. It's a small map. I don't think that's going to help us. So we've got locations such as Aldham Keep or the Abbey Abriel. And in brackets, they've got what I'm guessing is on some kind of map, you'll be able to locate the location. So, you know, J, you have ABC along the top or this one side, and then numbers along the other side, and you could, cross check, or, go find your row, find your column, and then find your thing. I'm guessing that's what that J5 means. If it means something else, I apologize. It's in the realm of Kaldor. It's held by Raquella of Nerez. It has 170 people. And it's from Saracala. I don't know what that difference between holder and from. If I come back here, maybe I need to look this up. All right, so geographical entries. Every settlement shown is listed, as are some that are not on the map. Entries give the name of the holder, the liege, and the approximate population. All right, so I guess the holder is who's currently in charge, and their liege. I kind of like if they would put liege in there instead of from, but I guess ultimately Saracella of Kaldor is the big boss, but currently being held by in the name of it's held by Raquel of Nurez, who rules in the name of Saracella of Kaldor. And that makes sense because we're in the realm of Kaldor. And then tribute. I don't know what that. I guess maybe and Orbal uses different terms, so I think that's maybe why this term is different. But I'm guessing the relationship is the same. So Vagel is the boss of Clan Sarasar. Maybe I would have preferred if they could just given us some like holder is fine, and then maybe Lord, or I don't know. Lieges, I think would have been worked good. I get here that they're trying to keep in terms of this organization, because this Orbal is pre-feudal, so things are a little bit organized differently. Kaldor is feudal, so things are organized, in that way. And then there's probably something we could probably see an example of. There's one republic, and maybe I'll remember when we get there. They'll probably show something a little bit differently. But in terms of just being able to eyeball this and kind of get it, it might have been nice to use the same nomenclature. But it's a choice. It's a choice that they made, and that's fine. Let's see. So Angisa, one of the most visible Jaren resistance groups, the Angisa operate mainly south of the Jal Mountains and along the east coast of Orbal. The group, whose name means ourselves alone in archaic Jaranese, is based on Gedin and engages in assassination and sabotage directed against Evanians and Jaren collaborators. The group was founded by Gwelfrin of Salins in 689 and is now led by Michael of Callan. They are associated with the Order of Truclaean Wheelwright and an Illyrian clerical sect with a secret temple in Gedin or Gaden. That's cool. Get a lot of info in here, I'm sure. This is going to give everything. You get Agrazar, the 6th month of the year, by Tuzin Reckoning, named for the god Agric. It's the last month of summer. And Agric is the principal deity of warriors who enjoy the dark side of war. Well, everybody likes a little bit of the dark side of war until it comes to their side. Aklash, the choking wind. So the Aklash is a great hulking semi-intelligent creature, best known for its foul breath. Ranging 6 to 8 feet in height and 300 to 400 pounds in weight, the Aklash's hairless body is covered in rolls of pale fat that heal over with alarming rapidity. Oh, so I'm guessing these are kind of their trolls, with the added bonus that these trolls have a not fire breath, but have some kind of breath attack, and clearly it's poisonous belch. Michael says the Harndex is basically set up like an encyclopedia. Yep. Indeed. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to read all through this. I'm just kind of picking out some highlights. Oh, we get a nice picture here. What's it? Which city is this? The city of Aliath. Nice. Anderson 4, King of Kande. I want candy. Araka Kalai, a huge limestone sinkhole located in Mizzen. According to legend and the doctrine of the Illyrian Church, Araka Kalai is the dwelling of the god Ilvir. That's cool. And this is called the Anisha, a site of Earthmaster origin. Ooh, nice. The Guild of Arcane Lore, Arlun the Barbarian. Hey, look at that. We have an entry on arrows. Nice. Astrology, the city of Azadmir. Ooh, the Balefire Chronicle. What was it? Balefire? What was that? What story was that Wheel of Time? Did Wheel of Time have something called Balefire, or am I thinking of something else? Bakar Keep. Retham, bows. Yeah, there's just a lot here. I mean, look, I give them credit for being really thorough. I would not have thought we would need entries on things like arrows and bows, but they're giving it to us. We even get in the Kingdom of Chibisa, we get a little reign of king list here, which is cool. Clothier's Guild. What city is this? Koranan or Koranan on the Thard River. I like these city maps. I always like this style. I find they're but I find that I don't need that much detail, really, for me personally, because I'm not going by street names. I'm doing more just, you're in this neighborhood or that neighborhood, or just you're at the place or whatever. But they're cool. I like to see them. Ian says, Balefire, the Forbidden Power. Yeah, there's something like that. I feel like the male users of what did they call the magic? I can't remember. That wasn't the Force, but it was, they would sling balefire at each other. Maybe the ladies did too. The Ain Sedai or whatever, or the I can't remember. I can't remember the terminology from those books. I know there've been RPGs based on the Wheel of Time before. I wonder if there's any there in print. Might be interesting to look at. I kind of dug the source. Thank you, Ian. I dug the books for a while, but I fell out of them on the later end. They just got too long, and I feel bad because what was his name? Robert Jordan, right? He died before he got to finish it, and was it Brandon Sanderson who came in and helped sort of finish off the books. And I know shade on those guys. I quit before that stuff happened. I just remember feeling bad when I heard that Robert Jordan died and wasn't able to finish, but it was just getting too long for me. I mean, it seemed to me that towards the end, when I stopped reading, that you just have just acres of pages about characters' journeys in detail and depth that they did not deserve or warrant, or that I wanted to hear. Like, you get on one of these characters, and I don't remember their names. Somebody I wasn't really interested in, and then it's like, here we're going to spend the next 150 pages on their doings, and I'm just like, I don't care. I was, I do not care about that. So here you have the Gargoon. We get some interesting different Gargoons. You can see the different types here. If I show, which is cool. And then we get some details on all. If you're interested in your Gargoon history lesson. Yes, Krister Aes Sedai. Yeah. Yes, I am kind of saying too lazy, didn't read. Definitely didn't fit. It's not even laziness. It's not that I didn't want to read it just because it was long. I think I didn't want to read it because I didn't care about those people, and the journey wasn't interesting to me. Like, I can read Tolkien talking about Bilbo wandering through the Shire and really enjoy that. And this wasn't that. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that Robert Jordan isn't a good author or whatever, but just got to a point where you're just spending a lot of time. And I think this happens on TV shows a lot too, especially in this sort of streaming age, where sometimes they will take material that's kind of short and they'll want to drag it out. Oh, we got to be 10 episodes. So let's take the story that really we could do in 3 episodes. And we're going to drag it out. And then you're just kind of watching. And you're like, why am I watching this guy do this thing that I don't care about for an episode or 2 episodes? Oh, it's too long. I thought it was too lazy. Well, here I go. Look at that. Learn something new today. I always took the TL to be too lazy. Didn't read, not too long. All right. Either way. Nosorian likes this setup for the lore. It is good. Now, the plus about this kind of index kind of setup, right? Like an encyclopedia. If you know what you're looking for, great, right? I need to know about Halmut or whatever. Okay. Or for some reason, I need to know about a hand axe. All right. You can get your alphabetical order, spin through and get it. Now, if you're not sure what you're looking for, potentially could be a much harder task, right? Because this is in an index, so you might need to look somewhere else. And I don't know, I don't have an example, but let's say I needed to know, like, oh, who are those people? Like what we read before about, these are this rebel group, and like, where the rebel group, right? Who is that rebel group again? Index isn't going to be much use unless if I feel like I'll recognize it when I see the name. I'm going to have to try to dig up somewhere else the rebel group and then find the index entry, right? So, and not to say that it's it's good because this isn't the only place we're getting some of this information. I'm not reading through all of it. I'm just kind of scrolling through. But the index works very well when you have other things. I think it's it's an interesting push and pull with that kind of thing when you like in a monster manual, right? Oh, the index of oh, here are all the monsters in alphabetical order, which is great. And then say you're playing 5th edition or something else. It's like, oh, I need a CR5 monster. And then it's like, well, the index doesn't help me because it's giving me alphabetical order, all these monsters, but I don't need alphabetical. I don't know the name of the monster. I know that I need this particular, aspect of the monster. Or HD if we're doing an OSR. Like I need an HD4 monster. So then it's like, it's nice to have that index or something else that references the HD and can give you like, here are all the HD4 monsters. Like, oh, great, and pick one. Ultimately, bottom line is if you can have both, some, different kinds of textual ways to get to the information, that's the best. I like the art here too. It's not all like, I don't know, it's fancy, but I like it works. Different styles too. We're only in the Ks. Okay, I'm just kind of going to skip forward. I don't know if you guys feel like you wanted me to read some of these, but I don't think we need to, right? We see what everything's like. I think we've gotten a good idea of how the HarnDex is put together, what kind of entries are in the HarnDex. It feels very substantive. It feels very detailed. It feels very inclusive of everything you're going to need for Harn. So I don't know that there's more to say here. I don't have the context to again, if it was a whole index to Lord of the Rings, I could think of all kinds of cool stuff to look up. Like, what's Sauron's middle name or something? I don't know, whatever. But did the Balrog have a wife? Whatever. But I don't have that context for Harn, so I have no basis to go just digging up stuff. And even if I read it, it doesn't really mean too much in the details. There it goes. The Thardic Republic. Nice. Christopher says, I will never understand why the D&D 5e monster manual doesn't list all monsters sorted by CR. If you want an alphabetical list, that's what the index is for. I mean, I don't think there's a right answer. I think it would be nice to have both. I think it's fine if you want to have alphabetical to be the start point, because a lot of folks, I need goblins or whatever, so I'm going to look up G for goblin, and doing it another way, I think makes it harder for a lot of folks in their primary use case. I think the primary use case, at least for me with a monster manual, is, oh yeah, I got this. I wrote down this encounter of, or wandering monster check of, say, D8 goblins attack the party or whatever. Or there's D8 goblins that are there. And, I need the stat block. Let me go to goblins, G. That's easy. But I think that it would have been nice to have, like in the back or the front, have a couple of pages with, here are all the monsters listed out by their CR and the page numbers, and have that be a secondary means. So when you're prepping encounters, that you can have it. Now, I think, obviously, I'm going to guess here that I think that the folks who wrote that didn't anticipate CR becoming the huge sort of thing that it's just uber important. I don't know that they predicted that there was going to be so much hubbub around encounter balancing and therefore needing CRs, that they're going to rely a ton on that, and then all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure that they anticipated that. And plus CRs, it's the whole system is kind of flawed, and it's not their fault. Well, yeah, people want to point to that, like, the 5th edition stinks because the CR system sucks. It's like, well, when you have so many variables going on as you do in a game where you have a lot of different classes that are in a lot of different ways, and you add items and other things on top of it, and you're constantly, expanding it, whatever. It's like CR, something like that, that's trying to tell you, is trying to take it and come up with some kind of sample party calibration, is going to fall apart when you can have so many different sorts of parties with so many different sorts of things. Not to mention you throw in homebrew and all this other stuff. It's like, how is CR supposed to cope with all that? I don't know. Maybe they'll come up with a way. And for folks who want to point to some other systems, they're like, oh yeah, well, it works perfectly in system X. I don't believe you. And the reason I don't believe you is because it hasn't been punished by a huge user base the way D&D 5e has. Don't show me some niche product. It's like, oh, well, this one works just fine. It's like, great, yeah. Have the min-maxing, whatever, optimization folks and all those people get a hold of this stuff and work through it, and then we'll see. Because that's the one thing with D&D is it gets played and ripped apart by a huge amount of people who are hugely hugely and intensely interested in doing so. Most other systems don't get that, so they don't get punished the way. Like my home game, I'm making custom classes for it. I can only say that my custom classes are as tuned as they are because to my players, and my players are not particularly looking to take advantage or min-max it or break them, so they're not going to. So to me, it's going to look like, oh, look, these are perfectly balanced and everything because my players are using them perfectly and no issues. And then some other table gets a hold of them, and then suddenly it's chaos. And that is my TED Talk on the futility of CR. Krister says, additionally, I will never understand why monsters have CR instead of just levels. One level 4 monster is as powerful as a level 4 PC. Simple. But it's kind of, but the problem, Krister, is which level 4 PC? D&D, 5th edition, they try to make everybody equal at every level, kind of, sort of. But what's your case for, so which PC is powerful? And then in what sense are they powerful? So if I look and say, okay, here's this monster as strong as a level 4 barbarian, am I assuming the level 4 barbarian is raging? And then do I say, well, this creature is going to have as much hit points as a raging barbarian? Or am I comparing it to a level 4 magic user? And I'm saying, well, this creature is going to have spells like a magic user does, or some other thing. Like there is no like level 4 PC. There's these different classes that work very differently. So whose resources and what aspects of each player class are you saying to make this level 4 PC? And that's kind of what I'm saying. And then which sub features are we talking about? Which things are we giving it? Like it's harder to bottom line in 5th edition say here is what a level 4 PC is. It's difficult. And that's what CR is. And that's why, as Nosarian says, it's an oversimplification, because it kind of has to be. It would be super unwieldy if it wasn't a simplification. But being that it's simple and parties and the games are not simple, it's I think it was really meant just kind of at a glance. Well, I'll just get a kind of get a sense for what the thing is. And maybe it still works okay as that. But it became such a focus of everyone really engineering and tuning their encounters. They're like, well, this vast simplification doesn't work. It's like, well, no, probably was never going to work. Well, I think, yeah, Krista, I think the thing is, though, again, though, it's how are you defining power, right? How are you defining your terms? A wizard may be powerful, but they're powerful in a certain way, right? A wizard is powerful in a certain aspect at a certain time, right? A wizard on a full rest who can Nova their most powerful spells, is that what you're going to tune this monster on, right? A level 4 wizard that's got all their spell slots and got everything. Okay, let's just say we're doing that. Is that how you're tuning it on? Or are we tuning it on, well, this wizard for any given encounter where there's probably not going to have all their spells and everything else, or a fighter with axe and shirt, like whatever. Like it's, I think it's when you're in OSR, it gets a bit simpler because a lot of the variables are not there, right? A fighter at level 4, you can really just bottom line say, yeah, we know exactly pretty much where this fighter is going to be at level 4. And then maybe we can do that. And then we can look at other things. But with 5th edition, it just gets more complicated. But even then, like HD as a thing, right? Krista, you're saying, hey, HD is supposed to be analogous to levels, but it doesn't always work that way. You could have an HD 1 creature, but they've got a save versus death poison, which means that they're HD 1 or HD 1 star, right? Because they say, oh, we have a star, so they get a little extra experience points, but the star means they have 1 or more kind of more powerful abilities, but still they're essentially 1 HD level 1, but they've got this really deadly power. And in the OSR, whatever, you just kind of go, yeah, that's just the way it is. It's a spider. It can kill you. It's got poison. Deal with it. Because we don't care so much about these other things, because we're supposed to be using these other tools outside of balancing encounters, or we're balancing them differently. Whereas when you get to something like 5th edition, the balancing concept's a lot more complicated. All right. This is I think this is just another geographical area, correct? Lithia. No, the world was something else, right? This is kind of, I guess, the Europe. Well, I think, Krister, I don't disagree with you that it'd be nice to have one thing, but I think that there are other problems that come in because part of the issue, which has been around forever, right, is do we create PCs and monsters on the same scale? And you could say, yes, we do, which would then make measuring them together easy. But at the same time, we often, especially I think with the modern game, we don't want to be shackled by player abilities when it comes to monster abilities. So then it can't just be straight because we want to give layer actions and we want to give other things. We want to give legendary saves. We want to give these things that clearly are not PC level powers. And we're not doing straight 5-on-5 battles. Maybe we want 10 and whatever. And we're trying to figure out things. And we're also not really, what do you do? How do you figure out if a dragon or a single big creature is worthy of a party of 5 regular PCs? Do you say, okay, if it's CR, if it's level 5, that means it's good for 5 level 1 PCs? Because we're not really, the CR is not meant to track monsters to PCs on a one-to-one basis. It's really supposed to be a party versus one or more monsters. And that's another way where it gets tricky. There's just not a good way to do it. You can find any way you're going to do it. There's going to be some other weakness, which I think is kind of the point of what I'm trying to say ultimately, is it's going to be flawed. It was always going to be flawed. The problem I think that came up is that there became or has become such a focus on balance that all these things kind of got exposed more than I think they were meant to. If you haven't noticed, we've moved into the Lithia section. I think Lithia is I don't know where Harn is here. I guess, is Harn up here? Maybe this is Harn. I don't know. Should I zoom in here? Can we zoom? Does it say if I get in close? Okay, I can't tell. Maybe we have to go back a page. Does that work? All right, let's see. Let's go back. Here we go. Or is this all Lithia? I don't know. Who in here knows about Harn can tell us. Because Harn is the sort of Britain-like planet. Okay, this is Harn. I was right. This is Harn. And then here, like Britain to Europe and I guess the Mediterranean and sort of the Near East, so is Lithia. You can definitely kind of feel like it. This feels very sort of Earth-like if you took kind of Europe or Europe and Africa and kind of broke stuff. Run some simulations in a program to remake the coastlines. I mean, just to kind of put a bow on the CR stuff. I like HD as just kind of a rough measure, which is definitely more it's more or less equivalent to a PC. But, that comes from me not caring about balance. So I'm not trying to do, when I'm using HD, I'm not really thinking of it in terms of, oh, this is equivalent to a player in terms of balancing encounters, because I could care less about balancing encounters in that way. I like my idea, is you balance encounters through context, and then you give the players the ability to make informed choices over, whether to head into that context or not. It's worked okay for my crew so far. I'm actually pretty proud about how my players have adapted to that kind of world. They do not tend to take stupid chances. We got languages. We got a bunch of people, so we're getting just more. Ooh, look at this, a language map. Man, now we're getting into the weeds, are we not? So if you need to break down your languages, I do say I like this more to just common, which is kind of bleh. Bleh. Lithia is the known world. Okay. I thought there was another. Yeah. Okay. So it is pretty much everything. But it's separate, but there's a different word for the actual planet, right? So this is the rest of the world. So Harn itself up here, and here's the rest of the at least known world. So there's no kind of America's continent, at least that's been discovered yet. Difficulty equals distance from starting town. It's a good concept. I like that too. Consonants. Okay, so we're getting script, and now we're in the Lithia index, which again I'm going to breeze through. I feel like we're going to get to the end of this. Well, we're 52 minutes, so getting to the end of this. So Kathira. Oh no, there is more, isn't there? Right. So there is another kind of your Australia here, Mernat over to the side. Sweet. Oh, and there is more. Look at that. I spoke too soon. So what is this over here? Camarand over here, which is sort of your Americas, your Europe. Oh, you got a little, is that Atlantis up there? And you have sort of Arctics. And then you've got your sort of Australia, maybe, was it Indonesia kind of thing going on there? Kathira is the planet. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So if you get the whole overview, oops, I keep using the wrong button. And we got even more stuff here, including, if you need it, prevailing winds, ocean currents, tectonics, and volcanism. So you even got your ocean current map here. It's amazing all the detail that they've put in. I mean, obviously they've been at this a long time, but still, this is pretty darn impressive. What is this now? This is, are those your plates? Looks like we've got, oh yeah, tectonics. So we've got our continental plates, the directions that they're pushing, all that stuff. I wish there were easier ways to do more of that kind of stuff, because I really like using that stuff, but I'm no scientist. And now we have the sky with our, oh my gosh, our star charts. Oh, I love it. Again, this is what we need. I need star chart generators. Krister asked about Iceland. Is there an Iceland kind of bit? You mean over here, this piece here? I suppose it could be Iceland, though maybe this piece over here, or is it, you think this is more like your Scandinavia bits and then Iceland's over here? Or is this be more Greenland? Who's to say? I mean, it's not exactly Earth-like, so it doesn't have to be an analog for everything, but even the star charts are split between this northern sky and the southern sky, which is awesome. And the sun is Nolomar. And then we get some more maps. Ooh, hex map incoming, or at least a hex overlay. What is the scale of our hex map? Area covered measures 250 Harnick leagues and approximately 375 Harnick leagues east-west. So is each one of those a Harnick league? Maybe. Oh, and there's your A, B, C, D. So does it go down to J? It looks like it should. Maybe. In any case, you can look things up there. Cool. I like how it has different styles of maps. It does feel very much like an encyclopedia, something that has maps in different styles. So here, kind of a more artsy map, and then a more sort of satellite style map. I think that's the end of it. Look at that. We reached the end. HarnWorld, our world, your rules, our setting, your story. There you go. So inside we had HarnDex, we had HarnWorld, which is the overall book. Inside we had Harn, the HarnDex, Lithia, Kathira, and the poster maps. Awesome. So I don't know when the print versions are coming of these. We shall see when they arrive. I don't know if there's a timetable. I haven't really followed messaging from them. I just saw the thing about, hey, we've got the 40th anniversary is released. I did see a couple of typos, which I don't know. Maybe I should email them and say, hey, I did, if I can remember where they were. Not big things, but small things. But it's first like a 40th anniversary edition. I'd hope that they would spot all of them. But I did see a couple. I probably couldn't find them again, which would stink if I was like, hey, I just want to let you know before you send these things to print. Got a couple of typos there. It seems like a really nice book. The layout is very old school. So if you're into the old school style, that's good. If you're looking for something that's newer, a newer thing, you're not getting it. But I think for this kind of thing, it's especially fine because it's all setting, right? All setting with sort of a few hinted mechanics, but lots of good material in there. I think the place of this kind of book. Well, one, obviously, if you want to play, if you read it, HarnWorld, and you read some of his materials, and it just seems like the setting for you, then everything you need pretty much is here. I mean, it's hard not to look at this and say, if you want a complete world setting, I mean, complete, capital C, complete world setting, everything is here for you, and including stuff that I just kind of, it makes me happy, but I kind of giggle at it too. Just things like, because it just almost seems so over the top and more than you need, but stuff like star charts and tectonic plates, showing where the tectonic motion is in the world. Like, when am I ever gonna use that? I don't know, but it's there for you. Hey, do I need an index on Harnick bows and Harnick arrows? Probably not, but you've got it, right? It's all there, including some cool stuff that you could even rip out of there if you want it on weather generation and some wilderness travel stuff that is, awesome. And like I said, the other thing I like is, you could pull stuff out of it. They have all kinds of things on how you could take how things work in Harn, like all the stuff they have on laws that they go into some nice detail on, or on the sort of feudal customs and things, or guilds, or manners, and how villages are laid out, and those organizational things. And you can just lift that stuff out and plunk it into your world, and you'll get it really will give you a nice feel to it, especially if you're going for kind of a really close to the earth, grounded sort of medieval fantasy. If that's kind of your jam, then this has a lot of stuff that you can use for your jam. No, Soren says, yeah, the maps and star charts are no small stuff. Cool for exploration. Yeah, I think there's a lot here. And I don't know what the price tag is. If you didn't kickstart it, I have no idea what that will be. I think the third edition on drive-through is something like $20-something, so it's not super pricey, but I think that's just for the PDF. So I don't know what availability is going to be like out in the world. Hopefully they'll have it up on Columbia Games to order it at some point. I'm sure they probably will. I'm guessing they will, but I don't know. And they do run sales and stuff fairly often. I know I got some of the, like Harn Manor, I got like a whole bundle of books on one of their sales a couple of years ago. And it's worth maybe checking out or going to their website or getting on their mailing list, just so that you can see when these sales come up, where you can get some of these printed books. Really cool stuff. If you guys are interested in more Harn, or Harn Master, which is kind of the system that you can run Harn with, let me know. I'm really going to listen to you folks and what you folks tell me you want. So if you want me to go into Harn Master, I'm happy to. I don't think there's a quick start, though. Maybe I should look for it. If there's a Harn Master quick start, that might be a great way to sort of put my toe in the waters. I don't know much about Harn Master at all, so it'd really be kind of fun in that it'll be totally new, or almost totally new for me, probably totally new for a lot of folks, because I don't think Harn Master gets a lot of love out there in the world. It's always, I hear it read about one of those systems where I see people saying, like, I'd love to play Harn Master someday, and I'm always in that book too, of like, boy, wouldn't it be cool to just try it someday. I'm definitely in that boat. Maybe we can at least give it a read, and then who knows, maybe we could figure out a way to make that happen. But I hope you folks enjoyed it. Nice to wrap things up in about an hour. Tomorrow, Lone Wolf Wednesdays is what I think I'm going to call it. Lone Wolf Wednesdays, back solo into Dragonbane. It's a tough situation that my halfling thief has found herself in, I think. So come check that out and come hang out. And we're going to do that. And then Thursday and Friday, I'm not sure what the rest of the week will hold. But other than that, if you give a thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. If you found yourself in here and you enjoyed this and you're not subscribed to the channel, if you'd like to subscribe, I'd love to have you. Other than that, folks, have a great rest of your day or night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. And I will talk to you later. Bye now.